When it comes to tablets, it can get pretty boring because no one's really doing anything different. Now, obviously, there are some differences in terms of hardware specs and software, but generally speaking, no one's really standing out. But that's not the case with the Lenovo Yoga Tablet 8. It literally stands out. I'm Andrew with mobileburn.com, here to review the device and see if it stands out for the right reasons. Now, when I say that the Yoga 8 stands out, I mean that in the literal sense because it has a stand built into it. This is something pretty unique. Now, we've seen kickstands put in smartphones before, but it's not that often that you see it put in a tablet, and that creates some very good use cases. If you're ever in a video chat and you just want to have it on your desk, or if you're watching a video and you just want to have it on your desk where you can look to it on the side, this is very comfortable to have. You don't actually have to hold the tablet. It stands up on its own. You can also prop it down while it's laying flat. So if you just want to look down at it rather than look straight ahead, that's something that's available to you. And Lenovo is able to do this because they had some pretty smart design choices when it comes to the tablet. You've got this cylinder along the left-hand side that pretty much holds the bulk of the weight of the device. On the right-hand side, you've got this scratchy plastic texture, while on the left, you have the kickstand, which is made of a more metallic structure. It also has these little, I'm trying to think of the word, it's pretty much to keep it stable on the floor. It's not going to scratch up. I mean, on the desk, it's not going to scratch up your surface or anything. A little felt, not felt, but soft plastic materials that's going to keep it feeling good. On the kickstand, it tucks away nicely and comfortably. You can just pull it out. Now, one strange thing about that is because all of the weight is on the left-hand side, when you do hold it up in portrait, when you're reading a book or something, it might feel a little bit strange after a while. Your hand naturally cups around the side, and then your fingers just rest in the metal area. But sometimes it can feel a little weird. And if you're someone who's prefers to hold it with the right hand, you can do it that way or flip it over, obviously. But you're not going to want to hold the left-hand side. You're not going to want to hold the thinner side because it feels a little bit unnatural. But going back to the cylinder, right here you have the power button. Really smart to put it there. It's very easy, it's responsive, you can turn it on and off without issue. And the cool thing is when you have incoming notifications, this will light up a little bit, it'll give you a little pulse light to let you know, hey, you gotta check this out. Right here, you have your micro USB charging port. And on the opposite side, you have ports for your headphone as well as your volume buttons. The volume buttons, not the most responsive buttons out there, but they do work and they do get the job done. And while we're on the subject of volume, I should point out that the speakers on here are really nice. You've got dual speakers on the front. They're once again on the cylinder. So you see that this little metal pipe thing is pretty much the core place where all the design elements take place. You've got your speakers here, and they tend to reach solid volume. They have Dolby audio settings on there, so it's not going to be obviously to rival your speaker, but it will be a little bit better quality than most. The cylinder is also what houses a 5-megapixel camera. It's not the greatest out there, but hey, it's a tablet and you typically don't expect much from tablet cameras. If you'd like to see an example, just follow the link in the description below. And on the front, you have a 1.6 megapixel camera. This is more for your video chats or your self-recording videos on the front. And because, of course, like I mentioned, it has the cylinder, you can prop it up for your video chats. What you're seeing right now is an example of the type of quality you can expect to see on the Yoga 8. So judge it for yourself. Once you get within the cylinder, you have a SIM slot that is blocked off because this is the US version. This supports Wi-Fi only, and it's B, G, and N. There's no A-band, unfortunately. And the micro SD slot supports up to 64 gigabytes, which is obviously very good. Internally, you only get about 16 or 32 gigabytes of storage, depending on which type you buy. And that's pretty much where the praise stops for this device, because as much as I like the design chances they took, they made some mistakes, some critical mistakes, in a few other areas that I'm going to highlight now. Mistake number one is the display. This is an 8-inch screen, but it only has 1280 by 800 resolution. Now contrast that with the Nexus 7, which offers a 7-inch screen with 1920 by 1200. So you can definitely see a more high-def experience when you're looking at one of those devices. I've been using a Nexus 7 and an iPad mini in recent times, and the screen is way bigger than it is on this device. Way better, I should say, not bigger, because they're actually smaller. But you get more pixels in a smaller area, so the overall display quality is much better. It's not as bad when you're reading text, even though text can look okay in the browser on here, but when you're on the home screen, the text is definitely pixelated. You can see the very dotty icons that come up, that appear. When you're watching video is when you really notice the difference. It's not as much of an HD experience, so they cut corners on the screen and the device suffers as a result. Another problem is the performance on the Yoga 8. This has a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core processor, but it's a MediaTek processor. And MediaTek is known to be slower than other tablets that you typically see in Android. It has only 1 gig of RAM, so when it feels like it's struggling to do things, it doesn't load as fast as other devices, you definitely notice that it's not moving as fast along as it should. The biggest problem will come when you try to play premium games. I pretty much gave up on trying to play Riptide on this thing because it was so slow, and more than likely you'll give up on it too because it takes so long for it to load things and the frame rate doesn't catch up. The graphics aren't as good as they are on other tablets. So if you're a high-end gamer, pretty much look elsewhere because this is not the device for you. The software isn't much to write about either. Now, you could give them credit for trying something new, but honestly, this is just one case where they would have been better off sticking to the script. As you can see, there's no real app drawer in this situation. It follows more of the iOS 7 or MyUI approach, where you just have this endless stream of different apps. And when you look at the icons, you can see they're not very original either. This is another case where these are pretty ugly and cartoonish and childish. They would have been better off trying some other things. Now, with the skin that they have on here, it's not the greatest, but you do have themes. And like I said, the themes aren't that pretty. Something that's a little more interesting is the gestures that they put in when you swipe up. You can get to Google Now, obviously that's standard, but when you swipe up on the home screen, that brings you to your setting menu. When you double tap, it brings up the apps that you've opened up recently, so it's just another way of doing multitasking rather than pressing the multitasking window, and while you're there, you can swipe away some applications you're not using at the moment. And if you keep going like this, you go to preferences, and you can actually change the animations between slide. So instead of having the default swipe, I'll put a windmill so you see the animation changes slightly. There are some things that are unique to the device. For instance, the sound and visual tab right there, that allows you to change the different color profiles. So because I'm holding the device, the colors look different than what it would if I was just having it on a stand. So I change it to stand, and they get a little more saturated because they're assuming that it's at an angle that your eyes see. So the colors change slightly. If I go and bring it back on the other side, I can change it to tilt mode, which will change the colors once again, or I can leave it on hold, and the color profile will change for each activity. Now, in light of all the things that I've said about the Lenovo Yoga 8, you might expect me to tell you to run for the hills if you consider purchasing this device. But there's one feature that I won't say will make you overlook its shortcomings, but it'll at least prompt you to reconsider, and that's the battery life. This thing is incredible when it comes to battery life. 18 hours of battery life promise, and that's pretty accurate. And that's with the phone, with the tablet running, that's with video playing, reading books, browsing the web, playing games. Not high-end games, but games nonetheless. And it has a 6,000 milliamp battery packed away in here. And that thing really hums along. And I've got my issues with the performance, with the software, definitely with the screen. But if you can overlook those things, and some people might be able to, the battery life that's offered in the Yoga 8 and the unique form factor of having the tablet be able to stand up on its own, independent of you for video calling or video watching, is something that a lot of people will enjoy. So I think there is an audience for the Yoga Pro, but Most people, I would advise staying away if you've ever used something with a higher quality screen, because the screen will get to you at some point. Otherwise, I'd say that it has nice speakers, to recap, a very unique form factor, and amazing battery life. Hands down, the best battery life that you're going to get on a tablet. If those are the things that are most important to you, the Yoga Pro 8 might be worth a look. Otherwise, I will tell you, run in the opposite direction. This is Andrew with mobileburn.com, reviewing the Lenovo Yoga 8 tablet for Android. Thanks for watching the video. Hopefully you liked it, and if so, feel free to click like and subscribe so you can see some more of our reviews. Until next time, thanks for watching.